It was the first day at Ravenrock Military Academy, and the air hung heavy with dust, anticipation, and testosterone. The morning sun beat down relentlessly on the barracks, baking the gravel beneath their boots and casting long shadows of the new batch of cadets as they lined up for orientation. Drill instructors were already shouting, walking down the lines like wolves inspecting their prey. Among the sea of recruits stood Ava Cross, silent, still, and utterly alone. She was not particularly tall or muscular, not someone who drew immediate attention. Her uniform hung crisply on her compact frame, her dark brown hair tied back tightly, and her expression unreadable. Most of the other recruits didn't notice her at first. Those who did assumed she was one of the admin additions mistakenly lumped into training. After all, what business did a girl like her have in Ravenrock, the most brutal special forces training base on this side of the country? As the morning drills began, it became apparent that Ava wasn't there to observe or tag along, she was a full-fledged trainee. And that drew attention. Some stared in disbelief. Others snickered behind her back. "She probably came here by accident," whispered one guy with a crooked smirk. "Bet she thought this was one of those weekend fitness retreats." Laughter rippled through the line, but Ava didn't react. She kept her eyes forward, posture perfect, feet rooted like a soldier who'd been standing in formation her whole life. Over the next few days, the mocking grew louder. Ava, despite enduring the same grueling schedule as everyone else, barely spoke a word. She trained without complaint, ate quickly and quietly, and slept with one eye open. She followed every order to the letter but never tried to show off. That only made the others more suspicious. "She's too quiet," a recruit named Dalton said during chow. "Either she's hiding something, or she's just not cut out for this." "Yeah, she moves weird," another chimed in. "Like she's always on alert." "Creepy, man." But Ava heard every word. She always did. And she never once responded. The first real challenge came during week 2, live fire drills and timed obstacle courses. Most trainees were excited. It was finally a chance to show what they were made of, to compete, to earn some respect. Ava stood at the back of the line, expressionless. When it was her turn, she moved with precision. Not flashy, not slow, just efficient. She didn't waste time, didn't stumble. She finished in the top 5. But instead of gaining admiration, she gained suspicion. "She's faking it," Dalton insisted. "No one nails it like that without some special training. I bet she was put here for some reason." That was when Sergeant Briggs started paying closer attention. He was an old warhound with a belly full of steel and scars to prove it. He didn't care about background, but he didn't like mysteries either. He watched Ava from the corner of his eye, waiting for her to crack, or show her hand. On the 18th day, during weapons assembly drills, Ava finished assembling her M4 in 31 seconds. No manual, no mistakes, just click, click, done. Briggs stared at her across the field. "That's not normal," he said out loud. The tension among the recruits reached its peak during the morning endurance run on day 20. Ava kept up with the top runners, breathing steady, form unbroken. When they reached the finish, she was the only one who didn't collapse to the ground or gasp for water. That was when Briggs decided to make his move. "Everyone, fall in," he barked, striding forward, eyes locked on Ava. "We've got ourselves a mystery among us." He walked slowly, inspecting the faces in the line before stopping in front of her. "Cross," he growled. "You don't talk much." "Why is that?" "No reason, sir," she replied evenly. "You think you're better than the rest." "No, sir. You think you belong here." A pause. Her eyes flicked up for a moment, and she said with unshakable calm, "I know I do." That did it. The recruits around her laughed, loud and obnoxious. Some clapped sarcastically. One even mimed a slow golf clap. Ava didn't flinch. She never did. "Fine," Briggs said. "You've got 30 seconds to finish the full obstacle course. Blindfolded. If you fail, you go back to 0. Understood. Understood." She didn't hesitate. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a black cloth. Without a word, she tied it around her eyes. "Who even carries a blindfold?" Someone muttered. "She's bluffing," said another. Briggs blew the whistle. The moment the shrill sound pierced the air, Ava moved. She ran forward like she could see with her skin. Her movements were fluid, practiced, like muscle memory guided her. She ducked under low beams, climbed rope ladders with silent grace, flipped over wooden walls like they were stairs. It was uncanny. The other recruits stopped laughing. Their jeers turned into murmurs. Then, silence. Ava slapped the final bell with her palm at the end of the course. A sharp ding rang out, and Sergeant Briggs looked at his stopwatch. 29 seconds, he muttered. Damn. The field went quiet. No one knew what to say. Even Briggs seemed rattled. She must have cheated, Dalton shouted. She probably got the layout early. No one does that on the first try. She's a plant, another muttered. She's not normal. The accusations rose in volume. The air grew thick with confusion and suspicion. Then, a new voice cut through it all. Enough. Colonel Darius Vaughn had arrived. No one had seen him approach, but there he stood at the edge of the training field, arms behind his back, eyes scanning the scene. The colonel rarely spoke to recruits directly. He was a legend, former covert operator, commander of multiple Black Ops missions. Rumors swirled that he once survived 2 weeks behind enemy lines with a shattered leg and a sniper rifle. Everyone stood straighter. Colonel Vaughn walked toward Ava without looking at anyone else. He didn't ask questions. He reached forward and took her left sleeve gently, rolling it up halfway to her bicep. There, just above her arm, was a faded tattoo. Small, black, barely visible unless you knew exactly what you were looking for. A coiled snake, fangs bared, eyes slitted. Its body formed the shape of a V. Colonel Vaughn exhaled slowly. That, he said, pointing at the tattoo, is a black viper mark. No one spoke. It was as if time had paused. Dalton blinked. Wait, what? Another recruit stammered. She's one of them. The Black Vipers weren't a myth, but they may as well have been. An elite unit so secret, most soldiers only heard about them in rumors. Operatives chosen before they even left their teens. Trained in silence, survival, and shadow. They didn't take orders, they were the orders. Colonel Vaughn looked at the group, his voice steady but firm. You all laughed at her. Mocked her. But you didn't see what I saw. You didn't recognize the posture. The breathing control. The silence. Ava Cross isn't here because she needs training. She's here because she's returning to normal life. More silence. She's survived places none of you have even read about. She's completed missions where failure meant death, and left no trace behind. You laugh at her because she doesn't need to brag. She's forgotten more about war than you've learned. He turned back to Ava. Their eyes met for a second, no salute, no words. Just recognition. Then he walked away, leaving the field and a group of stunned, speechless recruits. Ava stood there, blindfold still in one hand. Her face didn't change, but just before she turned back toward the barracks, a faint smile touched her lips. It wasn't pride. It wasn't arrogance. It was the satisfaction of no longer needing to prove a damn thing. After that day, the training ground at Ravenrock felt different. No one made jokes anymore when Ava Cross passed by. The whispers didn't vanish entirely, but they changed, turned into questions, quiet awe, even fear. The girl they'd mocked as weak, awkward, or misplaced now carried a different weight. She was no longer just a recruit. She was a mystery wearing fatigues. The Black Viper mark, once the stuff of whispered legends, had been revealed on her arm for all to see. No one dared question it. Not openly. Yet isolation followed respect. The others gave her space, too much space. Mealtimes were silent around her. During drills, her partners rotated so frequently it became clear they were all avoiding any lasting contact. It wasn't hatred anymore, it was intimidation. She was the ghost in their ranks, and they didn't know how to interact with someone who had survived things they couldn't imagine. The distance didn't bother Ava, not in the way it might have hurt someone else. She was used to being alone. In fact, she thrived in solitude. Still, Ravenrock wasn't just a test of skill. It was a test of unity, of trust under pressure, of how soldiers would function in chaos with people they didn't choose. Colonel Vaughn knew this better than anyone. And he saw how Ava's presence had created a divide that no instruction manual could fix. That was when he decided to change the game. At the end of the 4th week, the recruits were gathered in the central yard. The sun dipped behind the hills, casting an amber glow over the gravel field. Colonel Vaughn stood in front of them with a clipboard in hand and a rare glint of challenge in his eyes. Next week, he announced, you will be split into 5 teams for the Midnight Gauntlet. This is not a simulation. This is a controlled real-world exercise. You will be dropped in hostile terrain with minimal gear, limited ammo, no GPS, and one objective, recover the package and exfil without being captured. Failure will not be punished, but it will be remembered. A few recruits exchanged glances. The Midnight Gauntlet was legendary. Only held once a year. Most washed out. Some quit mid-mission. A few even ended up hospitalized. Team 1, Vaughn began, reading off names. When he reached Team 3, he paused for just a fraction of a second. Cross, Ava, he said. You will lead. A few gasps escaped the crowd. Lead her, he continued, naming 3 others, Dalton, Reyes, and Parker. Each one had been among those who had laughed loudest that first week. The tension between them and Ava was palpable. Ava's face remained neutral. That night, Dalton couldn't sleep. His bunk creaked as he shifted under the sheets, thoughts racing. He wasn't afraid of Ava, at least that's what he told himself. But something about the way she had moved through that obstacle course, blindfolded and calm, haunted him. He knew people who panicked under pressure. Ava didn't panic. Ava calculated. The next day, their team was given basic supplies, a map with half the coordinates rubbed off, 1 canteen per person, 2 M9s with only 1 spare clip each, and a sat phone with a 5-minute window of operation. They were told they would be dropped 5 clicks south of the objective zone and had 24 hours to retrieve the package and reach the extraction point. Before they boarded the chopper, Sergeant Briggs pulled Ava aside. "You're the team lead," he said. "But don't expect them to follow orders. Not at first. They don't trust you. Hell, they don't understand you. But they'll come around, if they survive long enough to see you work." Ava nodded once. She wasn't interested in convincing anyone. She'd done that her whole life. It never worked. But survival, that was a language they all understood. They landed at 0200 hours in thick forest terrain. The air was damp, buzzing with insects and tension. Ava unfolded the map and crouched low near a fallen log, using her flashlight carefully. "We go north for 2 clicks, she said softly. "There's a ridge that overlooks the objective valley. We move silent, single file. Reyes, take rear. Parker, mid. Dalton, front, behind me." Dalton scoffed. "So now you're giving orders." Ava didn't look at him. "You want to get home or be remembered as the guy who got his team caught because of ego." He hesitated, then followed. They moved through the trees like shadows, Ava guiding them through narrow ravines, avoiding patches of soft mud, and redirecting the group twice based on faint signs of motion ahead. She noticed things no one else did, a broken twig here, a displaced rock there. Her instincts were unshakable. At dawn, they reached the ridge. Below them, the valley stretched wide. A run-down bunker sat near the center. 2 guards circled its perimeter. A small drone buzzed overhead every 10 minutes. The package, likely inside the bunker, would be difficult to retrieve. "We wait," Ava said. "Observe rotations. In 3 hours, we'll have a 10-second window between drone passes and guard loops." Dalton crossed his arms. "And how do you know that?" "Because I've done this before," she replied, scanning with binoculars. "On the edge of Syria. The guards use predictable patterns. The drone is running a 3-point scan route. It takes 10 seconds to pass the south window. That's our breach point." Parker looked over her shoulder. "That's not on the map." "It wouldn't be," she said. "That's the point." 3 hours later, everything happened exactly as she predicted. Ava slipped down the slope, followed by her team. At her signal, they dashed for the bunker, staying in the drone's blind spot, moving like phantoms. At the south wall, Ava produced a narrow blade from her boot, pried open a rusted vent, and slithered inside. One by one, the team followed. Inside was dark, musty, and full of creaking metal. They moved silently, hugging walls, avoiding motion sensors that Ava somehow spotted before anyone else noticed. In a locked drawer in the security room, they found the package, a black case the size of a shoebox, with military-grade biometric seals. Parker's hands shook slightly. "How do we open this?" "We don't," Ava said. "We just get it out. It's tagged. The colonel will track it." Dalton, to his surprise, was no longer questioning her. His respect had shifted from reluctant to absolute. It was hard to deny results. But getting out wasn't as smooth. As they exited the vent, an unexpected motion alert triggered. A guard stepped into their path, raising his weapon. In one fluid motion, Ava surged forward, yanked the rifle sideways, and twisted the man's wrist. Before anyone could blink, the guard was unconscious, and Ava held his weapon. Dalton stared. "Where the hell did you learn that?" Ava looked back. Black Vipers don't leave fingerprints. With the guards alerted, they had no time for stealth. Ava led them through a narrow ravine off the north edge of the valley. Shots rang out, cutting through the air. One bullet grazed Reyes' shoulder. He stumbled, but Ava was already beside him, applying pressure while dragging him behind cover. Parker laid down, suppressing fire. For a moment, chaos reigned. Then Ava stood. "We're 1 click from extraction. You 3 move now. I'll draw them off." Dalton grabbed her arm. "No. We go. Together." But Ava was already running. She dove through the trees, creating noise, drawing the guards in the opposite direction. The forest swallowed her. The last thing Dalton saw was her silhouette weaving between trees like a specter. The remaining team reached the extraction point. A chopper descended, kicking up dust and debris. Colonel Vaughn stepped out, his sharp eyes scanning the area. "Where's Cross?" he asked. "She drew them away," Dalton replied, breathless. "She saved us." Vaughn said nothing, just nodded once. 10 minutes passed. Then, from the edge of the tree line, Ava emerged, limping slightly, blood on her arm, but still holding the case. She tossed it to Vaughn without ceremony. "Package secure," she said simply. Dalton and the others watched her, awestruck. She had faced death, made no fuss about it, and come back standing. Later that night, back at the base, something strange happened. Dalton walked up to her in the mess hall and set down a tray beside her. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked. Ava glanced up, then nodded. Others soon joined. Reyes, Parker, even a few from other teams. The isolation around her dissolved slowly, not with cheers or apologies but with silent acknowledgement. Ava Cross hadn't demanded respect. She'd earned it.